This video is brought to you by Squarespace. Welcome back, everyone. It is time once again. In this video, we're going to look at some work that's been submitted by viewers like you today. I've got some really impressive stuff that I want to share. But before we get going real quick, I want to talk about Japan. So in case you didn't know, I have formally announced our Japan trip for this year. It's something I'm very excited about. We're going to be going with my friend David Brookover. You might remember him from the Artist Series. He and I have been working on this collaboration for the last 6 months now, and I think we've got something really unusual planned. So we're going to spend 5 days in Kyoto, 5 days in Tokyo. We've got a day trip on each side, and it's going to be an incredible experience. So I've got a whole video on that. I won't go into it here. We do have a few spaces left. If you were interested in signing up, please do so before they are full. And if you want to see that whole video, I will link it up here in the show description. So hope to see you in Japan. So today we're going to look at some viewer mail, and I want to start with this, which is rather amazing. So this comes to us from a gentleman named Louis J. This is a portfolio of work called Marrakech Face to Face. And before I open this up, I just want you to note the presentation on this. It's got a box with linen on it. I mean, it's just absolutely beautiful. You open this up and it's got a series of prints. So this is not a bound book per se. This is just what we would refer to as a portfolio of images. Lewis also enclosed a note which reads, "Hi Ted, enclosed for your consideration is a limited edition portfolio of my latest project, Marrakech Face to Face. This project was shot in 2022 in the local markets called Medinas and some residential areas of Marrakech. The images consist of portraits of local merchants, street scenes, and some detail photographs. I'm creating these prints using Pysography. Pysography is an inkjet process which uses Epson printers and basically replaces the color cartridges with Pysography inks with 2 blacks and 6 different shades of gray. This process offers a wide range of tones for monochromatic split toning. The enclosed prints were printed on Italian watercolor paper. This body of work will most likely be made into a book, and I intend to have some future exhibitions." And by the way, I also want to note that Louis J. is a veteran of Mailtime. He sent me this book a couple years ago called Passing Fancies. This is excellent, and it's really interesting to see where he's gone with his work between this book and with this portfolio we have today. So I want to dig into this a little bit because this is really nice stuff. These prints are absolutely gorgeous, but beyond that, I want to talk about the content that Louis pursues in here. So I love the fact that this was done in Marrakech, so it's very location dependent, but it's a series of portraits, so it's something that's very different. You know, I get a lot of books where people go somewhere exotic and I get the postcard compilations back. That's not what this is. These are beautiful portraits. I love how they're environmental in most cases, and like some of them are really interesting. This one's a double portrait that's really cool. And so, Louis, I'm really glad that you decided to share this with me. This is really amazing to see, and I'm honored that you sent me a copy of this because this could not have been easy or inexpensive to produce. This is also nice too. This is just a cart of bread here. Anyway, really beautiful stuff, and I want to make some notes on the printing quality on here because obviously that's one of the highlights, but I think Lewis's content is definitely there, and I wanted to talk about that first. So Louis did a really good job of explaining this in his letter, but essentially Pysography is a recent process that's come out that uses an inkjet printer, and so the idea, and I will put links below if you're interested in any of this stuff because it is very cool. So Pysography is essentially digital printing, so you're going to use an Epson printer, but you have to modify your printer, and essentially you're going to use black cartridges or shades of gray rather than color cartridges, and it's really cool what the process is. And as he mentioned in here, it's 2 different blacks and then 6 shades of gray. So what you're able to get out of this are these beautiful prints, tonal wise, that have these rich blacks. They have really interesting shades that go between them all the way up into, he didn't go pure white in here, but they're beautiful images, and the tonality is just much different than what we're used to seeing. You know, I think in the history of black and white printing, it would be really cool to do an entire video on this one day. You know, you have monochromatic processes those were the earliest, right? And so color came along later. And so we're kind of wired into this color system today. But for those of you who print on an inkjet printer, it's really difficult to get good black and white prints. They end up leaning towards purple a little bit sometimes, and it's easy to get a color cast on them because they're not optimized just for grayscale printing. Jay, these are wonderful. They're beautiful. I can't wait to see what you do with this in terms of a book. Buckle your seatbelt because getting this quality of printing on a book is not a cheap thing at all. It's a very expensive process, but this is absolutely beautiful. I also love the fact that Jay made a portfolio out of this. This is something that you don't see people do as much anymore, and ironically, I have 2 of them in this video today, but they are rare to see. So Jay, you should be very, very proud of this stuff. It is just gorgeous. I love this one too. It's a portrait of the man with the shoes. and the bicycle. They're great portraits, and I think that they represent a maturity to your work and a depth that goes very far. And I think this is very much about Marrakech without it being a collection of postcards. And so really nice job, my friend. Thank you for sharing. So as I get into this next portfolio, just a couple notes. You know, Jay's is obviously very well produced. This amazing cover here where he's done a limited edition, signed it, has a little stamp on it. It comes in this beautiful box. They don't have to be this fancy to be creative and interesting. And this is what I'm going to show you in our next project here. So this is a little envelope here which contains a vellum cover sheet here, and it has a small portfolio of images. And this comes to us from John Davis, who is a neighbor of mine. He lives in Southlake, Texas, which is just, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes up the road. The front of the card reads, "With my small card project, this is a way of sharing my photography. I started this project because I believe that photographic print offers more enjoyment and meaning than the bombardment of transient images on social media. A print is often more striking and is tangible, real, and enduring." The images in this issue were selected from those taken during my Between Happy and Loving tour of the Texas Plains. Happy and Loving are two towns at the extreme ends of the trip. The location of the subject is on the back of each print. Be on the lookout for the next issue of the Small Card Project, John. So John, these are very lovely. I love the mix of black and white, and the color is just outstanding on this. It has a really vintage feel that reflects the Texas towns that you're doing. There has to be a nod in here to the Keith Carter book. If you guys haven't seen it, he has a wonderful book. It was his first book called From Uncertain to Blue, which was a tour of towns in Texas with strange names that he did with his wife early on. Uncertain and Blue, both being towns in Texas. Anyway, I love the tribute to that. I love the work that you're doing here, and I love the fact that you're thinking about doing more with this and definitely be printing your work. I wanted to contrast these two things because I think it's really cool. You don't see people doing portfolios as much anymore, and I think that it's also important to show you there's different ends of the spectrum. You can do them. If you have the means to do something that's heavily produced, that's not inexpensive at all, by all means do it, but it doesn't have to be that way. You can do something small like this too, which is really nice and beautiful. So John, thank you for sharing. This is awesome. Okay, I have two more amazing projects that I want to share with you, but real quick, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor this week, who are the always awesome folks over at Squarespace. How easy is it to build an amazing website in a matter of minutes? Squarespace has you covered. It's dead simple. Head over to Squarespace, hit Get Started. You can start by selecting from an impressive collection of customizable templates, or you can do what I do, build your own. Something unique because, you know, you're not like other websites. Give your site a name. Next, you can build your homepage. We'll start with a few preset layouts just to get us going. Want to sell products like books or prints? Well, you can feature those on your homepage. Create a few more sections if you want. Let's also give it a color palette. There's a whole bunch to choose from, and just get us started. We can change this all later. Next, let's select the typography choices. Welcome to your website. Everything is set up and it's all ready for you to customize. Squarespace is built on Fluid Engine, the next generation of website design. Select Edit, and Fluid Engine allows you to drag, place, and resize any element on the page. You can snap these to a grid, you can make them float on top of one another, you can freeform however you like. You can even preview and adjust how the site looks on either desktop or mobile. The layouts are independent. Of course, you'll want a portfolio for your work. Creating an image gallery is as easy as dropping a folder of images on your web browser. Once uploaded, you can drag to resort, customize the look, and Squarespace writes all of the code for you. Everything just works and it looks fabulous. Want to sell your own prints, books, or zines? Squarespace has the capabilities to not only set up your online store and collect payments, but they also give you all the tools that you're going to need to be successful. Managing shipping and payment options, manage your orders, and engage with your customers. They even give you the tax tools that you need to keep things organized and stay compliant. You should try Squarespace for yourself. It's absolutely free, no credit card required. Just go to squarespace.com/AOP, sign up for that free trial. If you decide Squarespace is right for you, I can save you an additional 10% on your order by using offer code AOP on checkout. That's right, the code is AOP. So stop procrastinating, go build your website today. And I want to give a special shout out and thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. All right, next up is this little zine, which comes to us from Adam Kocka, who is in Portland, Oregon. This is called Westsider. Adam also enclosed a note which reads, "Hello, Ted. My name is Adam. I've been watching your channel for quite a while now, originally finding it back in college around the same time as Digital Rev with Kai and Locke. That has been a while, my friend. At that time, I was pursuing a double major in history and education, but had a real interest in photography that was almost all-consuming in my daily life. An artist friend saw my eye for photos and encouraged me to pursue it seriously. Since college, I moved to Portland with the intentions of pursuing a career in photography here on the West Coast. I mainly photograph musicians and other artists in my studio, but have been directing music videos as my clients started requesting that as a service. This zine, entitled Westsider, is a culmination of 5 years on the west side of Portland, where I live. This area can often be rough, and it has been talked about negatively in the news. With this zine, I've tried to showcase some of the chaotic beauty and humanity that still can be found around my dwelling. Thank you for your time. Hope you enjoy the zine and keep doing what you do. All the best, Adam Kocka." So Adam, this is an excellent start. I love the fact that you have a long-term project that you've condensed down into a zine here. And I really like where you're going with this. I think the photography is outstanding. One thing I would love to see with this, as Ralph Gibson says, the point of departure. I would love to see you take this and pursue it and continue to refine it somewhat. Right now, if I didn't know what this was, I don't really get Portland out of this, and I don't really see this as one area of town or necessarily a town that gets a negative opinion in the news. I get that now that you've explained that to me, but I would like to see that come out more in the images. I think the images that you have in here are really good. I just would love to see that take a turn into something that is a little more descriptive in terms of a documentary piece. I'd love to see you continue this and have multiple volumes of this and see where you can go with this and see how it grows. I love your note in here. You talk about growing as a photographer and how your interest grew into that. And I'd love to see you just keep going at it and taking it further. So man, excellent job. Thank you for sharing. And by the way, if you guys want a copy of this or anything in here, I will put links to all the people I'm featuring in the show description as always, so make sure you check them out and support your colleagues. All right, so next up is this zine, which comes to us from Aidan Mobasser. This is called, I believe, 19 in Between. Aidan includes a note which reads, "Dear Ted, with this letter comes a book, or should I say a self-published body of work that I worked on 4 years ago. I finally decided to send this to you, the reason being I do appreciate your opinion and criticism of one of my long-term projects, which happens to be the shortest out of the bunch so far. The choice of papers and overall layout was with cost efficiency in mind. Since I'm very new to book publishing and have no financial support to get it done in a perfect way, I made a decent book, firstly for myself, then for whoever might be interested. My intention is to keep working on the creative side of myself to learn and get inspired. I see cameras and photography as a tool to tell what I have in mind with what I reflect at any given period in my life. Therefore, this body of work belongs to one of those periods, which might be interesting to you and your audience. Hope you like my work, and I'm looking forward to your comments. Kindest regards, Aidan." Okay, so Aidan, a couple things that I want to say about this. First of all, I love it, and you don't need to apologize for anything. I love the fact that you just did it. There's certain things that keep people from actually going ahead and producing something, and it's very unfortunate because unless you're producing and unless you're working on things, you're not going to get better, and I think you know that. And whatever your budget is, if you have the budget to do a big book and you've got financial support, well, that's fine. But if all you can afford is to do something on blurb, that is totally cool too. So I don't want you to feel like it's less of a project because it doesn't have fancy printing quality around it. In fact, I would even argue as you're learning, it is best to keep your expenses down rather than pay a bunch of money for a one-time thing that maybe you're artistically not ready for at that point. So a couple things that I want to say about the content that's in here. Okay, first of all, obviously COVID-19 is the theme around this project. And I like what you've done here. There's a lot of themes that you've explored in here, dealing with isolation, dealing with loneliness, the people, the grocery stores with the empty shelves, and I think that this is, and I think you've done a really nice job on this. The only problem is there are a lot of other people, if you watch this channel, who have sent in things with similar concept in it. And what's really interesting to me, and this is not a bad thing at all, it's just an observation that I want to make on this, is that I think when we went through the pandemic, it forced a hard reset on everyone, myself included. I did things during that time that I had not pursued before. I think a lot of it is, one, we have additional time on our hands, but I think two, we are in a position where we can hit that reset button and we think of things that way, or we certainly did. I did, and I know a lot of other people who did too, and it definitely changed my work, and I think your work and a lot of other people for that same reason. It's a reset button in a sense. So what I would like to see you do on this is I think you've done a very good job of explaining visually those themes that you were going through at the time. I would like to see, and I say this for everybody who did big projects during COVID that look very similar, that explore the ideas of loneliness and solitude and you know, all those kinds of things, uncertainty. How can you take that now that we're post-pandemic, and how can you continue to use that as a driving force behind the work that you're doing? Maybe it's picking another subject completely. Maybe it's finding ways to express these same kinds of things, but with different source material now that we're in a different world. So I think there's a lot of possibilities here, and that's my only criticism. I think your work looks good. The only thing is I would like to see you come out of something that everybody else has also done, and then use that as a catalyst for where you want to go next, because I think that's the important part. It's something that, you know, I remember when we went through that, and I've talked about it here on this channel before. It was really uncertain, as I remember, and it was really different and really scary and unusual, and I think a lot of us did see it as, okay, well, we've got some time to pull back here. But when you look back at that, I think the great reset that a lot of people felt creatively with that wasn't necessarily a bad thing at all. So I think what it is how do you take that energy now that we're beyond that and continue to use that as a driver in the creative work that you're doing. So anyway, Aidan, thank you for sharing this. I think it's awesome. Continue to work, continue to send me stuff. I'd like to see your progress on this. So awesome start here. And I want to thank everybody who sent stuff in today. Check out the links in the show description below if you guys are interested in getting any of these. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Until then, later.